Hey everybody. Today we are going to one of my favorite places in Knoxville, Fort Dickerson. This is an old Civil War earthen fort, uh, built as one of 9 forts that oversaw Knoxville and the protection of Knoxville during the Civil War. So let's take a tour of it. So, to my knowledge, this is one of the most well-preserved earthen forts, definitely in the southeast from the Civil War, but perhaps one of the best preserved forts in America. I don't know. So yeah, we're just walking up here, and as you can see, these mounds here, these are part of the fort. These were built by Union troops. And as I turn around here, don't know that you can really see the city, but you might kind of be able to see it through the trees. See Neyland Stadium, Thompson Bowling. So as you can tell, you had a great view. And in order to really imagine what it was really like, imagine it without all these trees. Because I'm pretty sure they had cut down all the trees in the surrounding area. Let's go around the outside of the fort first. There's a marker here saying dry ditch. And there are a bunch of markers around here showing you kind of where everything was. And like I said, this is one of 9 forts that were built to protect the city of Knoxville during the Civil War. Probably the most famous one was Fort Sanders, where General Longstreet tried to run up the hill up to Fort Sanders and take it over, but did not succeed. And I'm really ignorant when it comes to how they use certain parts of the fort. So, I don't know if this outside path really was used or not. I'm sure it was. But what you really can't understand from here is that this fort is on the top of one of the tallest ridges in the city. Like, we might be, I don't know if it's quite the tallest point in the city, but it's pretty well damn close. And is definitely one of the taller points on the banks of the Tennessee River. Well, at least in the Knoxville area. Yeah, I'm not sure what the dry ditch was used for. Maybe, I don't know. If you know what the dry ditch part of a fort was used for, please let me know. And now we're kind of oriented east now, and pretty much straight east on this ridge over here was also another one of the 9 forts. I don't remember if that one was Fort Stanley or Fort Higley. So now we're looking back north, walking back towards the river a little bit. You can see how high they built these earthen mounds. I mean, I'm 6 foot tall, and I mean, that's probably 10 foot high. I don't, maybe, pretty close. Let's see if you can get a picture of how far down it is there. That's Chapman Highway down there. That runs directly to the river. Named after, what's his name, David Chapman, who was a super massive proponent of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. He's definitely one of the people responsible for making the national park happen. So just wanted to kind of show you guys, this is what Knoxville looked like back then. You can see the forts at the bottom, and then at the top, the city. And then here's what it looked like from the view from Fort Dickerson down to the river. So you can see there was not as many trees. And here's another stone marker here. It says gun embrasure, and you can kind of see the gun right behind it. And at this time, you know, Knoxville was still a tiny city. I don't even know, people debate whether or not it was really a city back then, because there were so many migrants, because this was the western part of the frontier before the Civil War. So, I mean, you look over there and you see Thompson Bowling Arena, and that's the University of Tennessee's campus. But the real city is further to the right, kind of this way. That was where the city would have been. So let's actually walk in here into the fort. This marker says gate, so I guess they would have had a gate here. I don't know if you can really tell, but it really looks like natural terrain. Which, of course, it's been weathered a lot since the 160 years that it was built ago. Here's another gun on our right here. And again, my knowledge is limited on military weapons, but I think these guns used to shoot over the river, all the way over the river, which is incredible to me. I don't know how far it is, but it's a long way over the river. And just real quick, I want to show you this underground magazine is what this stone marker says. So this little depression, I would assume, is where they put all their extra arms and ammunition and gunpowder, I guess. Yeah, and so here we are at a gun embrasure. And this really is not a big area. It's a tiny, tiny fort. Well, in my opinion, I really don't know what the size of forts were back then. But here we're facing the south now. Let's go up here and see. All right, this marker on the right says 3-inch ordnance rifle. And then this says gun embrasure here. And so yeah, we're looking off into the south. So it's kind of cloudy today, but off in that distance over there, that's the Great Smoky Mountains. That's where you'd find, well, formerly known as Clingman's Dome, but now it's officially renamed to Kuowee, I think. The Cherokee name. And so here we go. This is pointing more towards Sevierville here. And then kind of on your right here, if you kind of drew a line directly that way, that would be in the general vicinity of Maryville. And so what this plaque here is talking about is, they call it the back door to Knoxville. So basically, these are the way from Maryville out that way, Maryville, Rockford, and eventually Sweetwater, which is a little further right in the direction. But so Major General Joseph Wheeler's cavalry, he actually approached Knoxville from the south, from this way. And so you can imagine, once the trees were all cut down, how good of a sight line he had, or not Wheeler, but the Union troops had up here to be able to see Wheeler's advance from the south. And lucky enough, they were able to stop Wheeler's advance, and he could just never get up to the top of Fort Dickerson to do anything because it's so high up. And this is a look kind of back at the whole fort. We're looking back north, back towards the Tennessee River here. And we're just now walking back to where we started. And I'm just always in awe of the significance of Knoxville in the Civil War. I was just reading yesterday, and the story, a lot of people think, that Knoxville was neutral during the Civil War, and in some ways it was. The fact of the matter is Knoxville actually voted on whether or not they were going to secede. And then if they decided that they would, then they would take that to the state convention. Well, what happened was that the vote ended up something like 700 to 300 in favor of secession, but they allowed 400 Confederate soldiers to vote. So once they took away this Confederate soldiers' vote, Knoxville was pretty much in a stalemate as far as whether or not they wanted to secede. Now, eventually they were forced to because the state seceded. But in reality, Knoxville at the beginning of the Civil War was held by the Confederacy. And eventually General Burnside came into the city and was greeted with some pretty heavy fanfare. But the city, Knoxville, especially since the Civil War and during the Civil War, has been a pretty tumultuous place. And here we just see the Underground magazine marker, a different one here. So, I mean, Knoxville, throughout the Civil War and even after the Civil War, former Union soldiers and Confederate soldiers were shooting each other on Gay Street. And there were multiple feuds that were fought and ended here. And I think what made everything else so complicated in Knoxville is that originally a group of free black slaves had settled prior to the Civil War here. And, obviously there's going to be some differences of opinion when you get people of different backgrounds in there, especially back then. Here's another gun embrasure marker. And again, you can just kind of see the sight lines that this fort had all over the place. I mean, you could see pretty much anything from anywhere you needed to. Here's another 3-inch ordnance rifle. And here we are back at the beginning. I just want to go over here and talk about this plaque here. So Fort Dickerson, 1863 to 64. On the bottom left, it shows you kind of the wooden structure they had built with a federal gun crew here. And then you can kind of see, there you go. You can see the plans here. You can see at the bottom what the entrance gate looked like. You can see the ground plan. And then it kind of tells you, there you go, there's what the underground powder magazine looked like there. It says built to protect powder and ammunition. It was below ground level. And then here's where it says any of the gun embrasure things. That's what it's showing here. So it shows you what that looked like. There's an embrasure for the gun. And then how they had how the infantry could stand up and shoot out of it. And then here's a diagram of kind of how the sightlines of the fort looked and how they worked. So yeah, that's Fort Dickerson. That's one of my favorite places. We're gonna go over to the other side and look at a couple more plaques there, but this is the fort. So thanks for being out here with me today, and we'll do some more later.